Alright, so Volume 8 closed a lot of storylines that our characters were going through, and the majority, I felt, ended pretty satisfyingly. But while some storylines ended, new storylines have been created and hinted towards for future volumes, which I loved. I loved that the writers aren't just sticking with the same storyline through multiple volumes and just stretching it out. And I also love how seamless we moved into these new storylines. None of them felt forced, like I was watching some kind of CW show or something, where every new season is introduced with these completely new storylines that don't fit and, like I said, feel forced. These new storylines were naturally created based off of a decision or multiple decisions that the characters made during Volume 8. So I thought I'd theorize where everyone will be both physically and emotionally during the start of Volume 9, as well as where they can possibly go in the future. I will be talking about Team RWBY, of course, but I'll also look into characters we might or might not see in the next volume. So yeah, let's not waste any more time. Before that though, real quick, just want to say thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys end up enjoying this video, then you can like the video, comment, subscribe. All those things really help me out with this weird YouTube algorithm, and also subscribe and let you guys know when I upload next. And I do of course plan on doing more RWBY videos in the future, so if you guys want to know when I upload those, just subscribe. Thank you again, and let's get into the video. So I want to start off with the main event. Team RWBY, Jaune, Neo. In the end of the last volume, all these guys fell into the void and got transported into another world. Now of course, I'm no void expert, but based off of the post-credit scene, I think it's safe to say that where you fall into the void affects where you end up in this wonderland. The reason I say that, Crescent Rose fell into the void by itself in chapter 14, with maybe the exception of Neo's umbrella. It's not completely clear because in between this scene and this scene,
I hope it was worth it.
We cut back to Crow and the Aesop, so it's not clear whether RWBY and Neo moved elsewhere while they were fighting, but nonetheless, there's nothing and no one else in sight in the post-credit scene, which means the void doesn't just throw you up in the same spot once you've fallen in. This is what leads me to believe that where you fall determines where you land in Wonderland. This means our characters are split up, but unlike the Haven arc, it won't last for an insane amount of time, and everyone won't be completely separate, like Ruby and Blake. They fell together, so that should mean that they'll land together. Hey guys, editing guest note here. This was, by the way, recorded before the sneak peek came out, so during this time, I did not know that Ruby was going to land by herself. That being said, I still feel like Blake might be close by, as well as Neo. So I still stand by the whole where you fall determines where you land. So yeah, we're basically just gonna have to wait and see for like the trailer or the first episode. But yeah, I'm still standing by my first theory. John and Weiss, they fell a bit apart, but they are still pretty close to each other. So after a few minutes of walking, they should be able to find each other. Yang is the only one that fell alone. Not only that, she was the first one in the group to fall. So she's the one that's either going to travel alone or she'll meet a new character in this new world and travel with them. Neo fell close to Blake and RWBY, so she'll probably be closer to them, though we'll talk about that later. The main focus for the beginning of the volume with the Wonderland group is meeting up together and finding a way out. So with that will be a ton of exploration and new things. Another thing that we might have to worry about is all of the citizens that got yeeted off the platform and into the void because of Cinder's giant explosion. Are they still alive? The explosion might have killed them, but if any survived, they would be able to survive the fall even without an aura, because when Yang fell, she also didn't have her aura with her. This means that RWBY and Jaune would need to help escort these citizens to safety and defend them against any antagonistic forces that might be around this world, which could prove to be difficult. Also, RWBY needs to find Crescent Rose. We are not leaving that beautiful weapon. So we have the general objective, but it wouldn't be RWBY if the characters didn't have a bunch of mental baggage to deal with during their adventure. The biggest thing is Jaune. Remember, this man has just gone through a whole arc of grief and anger and came out a better man. Volume 8 was easily peak Jaune excellence. During this volume, he was so level-headed, taking the leadership role in stride both in his plans and his wisdom as well. Not to mention his fighting has greatly improved. After having to kill Penny in order for Winter to become the maiden, however, I have no doubt this action will still stay in his mind. This could lead to PTSD, a breakdown, regressing back to his volume 4 through 6 days. He's going to need a new sword. Maybe he'll be hesitant after what happened, especially since that sword was also made out of Pyrrha's armor. He could even question if being a huntsman really is for him. I'm very interested to see what the outcome of this new journey will bring John. You know, like the end goal. A similar journey to John's is Ruby. We've seen since volume 4 that she keeps a lot of negative things to herself until they eventually can't be held any longer. And little by little, we've been seeing it all leak out. Her breakdown in volume 7, her talk with Yang in volume 8, it was very clear that this issue was not over with. It hasn't been settled. And if she finds out Penny died at the central point, this could send her spiraling into another breakdown and maybe even depression. John could tell her what happened, but I think it will be even worse if Ruby just finds Penny's body lying on the ground. She was in the central point when the paths disappeared, so her body should have fallen into the void along with everything else. That means we're gonna see her in Wonderland. It only makes sense. Ruby's emotions are connected to her silver eyes, so maybe we'll see them go out of control because of all the stress and negative thoughts. And who knows, it might cause an effect in this different world. I think in this volume, Ruby will be pushed and pushed until she finally opens up to her friends, fully. I honestly don't think Ruby's talk with Yang was her opening up. It was a great scene, yes, don't get me wrong, but it was more Ruby criticizing her past actions rather than her opening up about how she was feeling inside. Fear, hate, sadness. Ruby never told us how she was feeling during all of this, and I think she'll need to in order to start on the path of feeling better. And I think having Blake be with her is an absolute good thing with Ruby in this negative mindset. Blake can act as a comfort as she tries to get Ruby to open up. You know, constantly asking, are you okay? Are you okay? It does sound annoying, but it's a lot better than just being alone. So I think having Blake be there with Ruby, she can act as her anchor, and this means we'll get a lot more interactions between the two. Now, Blake and Yang. While their storyline hasn't really been that upfront or talked about in the series, it's definitely been hinted at throughout 2 volumes. We've seen hints that killing Adam hasn't left their mind. In volume 7, this is brought up. Blake can't help but think what they did was, while not wrong, she made it clear in the future she wanted to do things differently. Yang, on the other hand, believed that they had no choice. We saw in this conversation that what happened that day is still weighing heavily in their minds. The second time this was brought up was during Yang's conversation with Ruby. If you remember, this happened.
You know, that giant hound kicked us around like we were nothing. But Blake said you and the Chinese managed to take it down.
Did she tell you what it was? Underneath?
Yeah.
You know what that means then.
I wouldn't worry about that.
That's what happened to Mom.
When Ruby asked if Yang heard what was underneath the hound and Yang said yeah, I feel like Yang thought Ruby was focused on it being a person and not the fact that it had silver eyes. I think when Ruby said, "Do you know what that means?" Yang was thinking Ruby was talking about how they all had to, in a way, kill the faunus inside the hound rather than its connection to silver eyes and their mother. So when Yang says, "I wouldn't worry about that," that's her, as someone who had to kill someone before, try to ease her sister's conscience using her own methods of trying not to think about it too much. This is what I believe Yang is doing with Adam's death, trying not to think about it, because yes, Adam was a horrible, murderous monster, but he was still a human. I mean, he was still a faunus. It's not like slashing through Grim after Grim. Yang and Blake had to take a life. And even though it was the life of someone who was trying to kill them, having to plunge a knife into another person, it can leave scars. Scars a 19-year-old girl wouldn't know how to handle. So I think Volume 9 will be covering forcing Blake and Yang to talk about what they did. And maybe this could lead them on a path to finding a better way to stopping these hounds who have human lives inside them without actually killing them. Because I feel like this is a topic that needs to be discussed now that the hounds are involved in the story. These things are living people inside, so is there a better way to stop them, or are Team Ruby and the others just gonna have to keep slashing through them, killing a bunch of victims, basically. Finally, Neo. I feel like Neo's gonna go full Kraven the Hunter on Ruby and hunt her down in this weird looking forest. And that will be her goal while we're in this world. Maybe she'll act as the primary villain or something like that, and Ruby's gonna have to get out of this alive without Neo poking one of her eyes out. Two things could come out of this. Neo gets trapped in this world, left to live the rest of her life in this new world, while everyone escapes. Or two, she gets redeemed like Emerald. Honestly, I don't care either way. As long as it's done well and the redemption doesn't take time off of the main characters, I'll be entertained. So moving on to the Vacuo group, we have Oscar, Emerald, Nora, and Ren. Ren and Nora had wrapped up their discourse in Volume 8, but while fixing that, their conversation opened up a lot for Nora's character. Her lack of self-worth, her mother issues, her confusion about how she can be of more assistance than just being the muscle. Volume 9 onward, I believe we'll have Nora trying to figure out all of this. Maybe we'll get more about her mother. Maybe we'll actually get to meet her mother. Maybe we'll see her take more of a leadership role while John is away. Personally, I hope Volume 9 focuses mostly on Team RWBY, John, Cinder, and Salem. I really want this volume to really give our main four and John the attention that they deserve. But if we do end up flip-flopping between realms, this could be something to focus on for Nora. Or maybe we can reconvene with the Vacuo group with Team RWBY when they return. And when we do, we'll see that Nora has started to take up that leadership role, and then we'll just take it from there and develop it further. As for Ren, I think he'd be perfect as support for her as she goes through this journey. Now Oscar. In Volume 8, they heavily brought up Oscar and Ozma's fusion, talking about how using magic makes the process go faster. Right before watching Oscar actually use magic to help his friends, Oscar's path is the same as it's always been, but now I can feel us starting to get a move on with this storyline. We've already seen hints of both Ozma and Oscar's minds becoming one through Oscar's mannerisms. So I think when we return to Remnant with Ruby, we could see a drastic change in Oscar. We'll see more of Ozma in him, in more than just his mannerisms, but in words too maybe. And we could see him struggling with this, and desperately wanting to keep, well, being himself. We already know that Ruby and Oscar have a connection, so maybe she could help him keep his own humanity. And right away, I just want to say, it doesn't have to be sexual or weird, so stop before you start thinking weird things. Ruby made a promise to him back in Volume 6, and she's gonna want to keep it. Plus, Oscar is her friend first and foremost. Finally, Emerald. Her biggest thing is going to be not running away. We saw her help at the end of Volume 8, and while I personally don't think that her redemption was done on the right key, I'm ready to move on, because the road to redemption is a lot longer than just a few miles. It's an ongoing thing. It would be cool watching her battle her fears, her desire to run, her feeling towards Cinder. I just hope that it's not just bam, she's a good guy. Watching her struggle to be good would not only be entertaining, it would make me root for her a lot more because I was there with her, watching her improve throughout her journey. So now the Aesops and the birds. I really don't have much to say about them, mostly because I hope we honestly don't focus on these guys at all in Volume 9. Hopefully we'll see these guys in Vacuo, or they'll arrive after Team RWBY arrives, and that'll be that. The Aesops, after all this, will most likely see the error of their ways. I'm really hoping that the people of Atlas and Mantle create a whole new kingdom, and maybe we can even get a spin-off focusing on Winter being the leader of this kingdom and building it from the ground up. That's my biggest wish, that's my hopeful dream. And during this, we can have the Aesops help out with that. Otherwise, I really don't see these guys being very important until the final battle, where we can have everyone coming together endgame style and helping them take down Salem. I don't see any other storyline with these guys, and honestly, I probably wouldn't want anything unless they were doing that spin-off like I said. Crow, he's probably going to think his nieces are dead if he arrives at Vacuo before they do. Maybe Raven and Ty will teleport to him, and then we'll see most of Team Stark together again. There's nothing really new with him right now. He just got over his revenge subplot and drinking subplot. Crow's gonna probably take a back seat for a while, at least until the show finally decides to dive into the Stark stuff. Finally, we have Salem and Cinder. Cinder, despite her betraying everyone, has grown since Volume 8. She's smarter, she's winning. I mean, look, she got both relics. I think more and more she's gonna try and overthrow Salem. Meanwhile, Salem's Salem. She's gonna keep doing what she's doing. I don't really know what's immediately in store for her. She can't use Jin, so she can't ask any questions, but maybe she's gonna use Ambrosius to create something. I'm thinking maybe like a big angry Grim, or maybe she's going to create a flying castle that will take her to Vacuo, or maybe she's going to create a portal to Vacuo. Of course, only time will tell. Honestly, there's a chance that we won't even see her in this volume at all. But yeah, those are my predictions for everyone who will be mentally and physically going forward in the future. There's a lot, especially with Team RWBY. You'll notice that I didn't say anything for Weiss though, and that's because I don't think there are any storylines for her, at least nothing based off of what happened in the last volume. Hopefully they find something for her though. I feel like since volume 5, she's taken a major backseat. Even in Atlas, she wasn't very upfront like she should have been, which is a big shame. Yeah, she exposed Watts, but I'm talking about a proper storyline that challenges her character. We didn't get that for a long time. So hopefully that changes. But tell me what you guys thought about my ideas. Do you see some truth in any of them? Some possibilities? Tell me in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Until then, bye.